everybody, my name is Dr. Dena Counts, and welcome to our Building Relationships in the Online Classroom for our Summer 1 FDI presentation. I have here with me today Dr. Gae Goodwin, who is going to talk with us, as well as myself, about building relationships with our students and each other in the online classroom and how it benefits us. Now, before we get started, we're going to do a few introductions so you'll know a little bit about us. Dr. Goodwin, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about yourself?
Well, good morning, everyone. Hello to all of you. I wanted to, first of all, let you know that I am a Wildcat for life. I am an ACU graduate and I earned my doctorate degree in organizational leadership, specializing in conflict resolution. Prior to that, I earned a bachelor's degree in business operations and a master's in human resources management. I've spent my entire professional career in human resources in various roles for major corporations. And I currently am engaged with really learning the workplace and making sure that we have effective leaders in the workplace and effective teams as well. And that we're strategizing to ensure that our businesses are prepared to sustain the transformation of the needs of our community and the workplace, and that we have great leaders in order to drive the business goals forward.
Dr. Goodwin is just one of those really cool people that I wish I could be around all the time. Uh, they also call her Dr. Gigi, and she teaches in our organizational leadership undergraduate program and has blessed so many students. And that is one of the many reasons we asked her to join us today. My name is Dr. Dena Counts. Many of you know me. I'm Assistant Dean here in the College of Graduate and Professional Studies for ACU Online. I also am Program Director for two programs, Applied Communication and Organizational Leadership. My doctorate is also from ACU in Organizational Leadership. My master's is in Communication, and so is my bachelor's. So that's why I have the ability to teach in both of those programs. I've taught online for many years and really have a love for students, as well as how we can bring education to so many people outside of our Abilene campus to the rest of the world. But let's move on now and talk about relationship building in the online classroom. And, we really need to address why this topic is important. An increased sense of relationship for students coincides with a sense of community, engagement and perceived learning, student persistence, and collaboration. And as I work online with students and as I teach, I have found that the more I try to build relationship with students, these things happen in the classroom. And what Dr. Gigi does in the classroom is a great example of this as well. So let's talk first about a sense of community. And because we're not in a face-to-face campus and we're doing online learning where you and I and the students are all sitting by ourselves in our homes, maybe with our family and friends around, but that disconnect from being online can be challenging to form a sense of community. But Damari and Tutal in 2020 noted that online learners who feel a sense of community in courses are more likely to feel motivated, satisfied, and tend to do better in academic courses. So let me share with you one of the things I do to help students feel that sense of community. One of the things that I do in the first week of class is I make sure that as I grade and as I give feedback, I always use their names. I'll say, Susan, you had a good point about this, or Tamika, you had a good point about this, because I'm trying to recognize them. But Dr. Gigi also has some great ideas on how to form a sense of community. How does that happen in your classroom, Dr. Gigi?
Sure. So one of the things that I am most proud of is that I am a Wildcat for life. And I've always tried to draw that into my feedback and to the discussions by, first of all, thanking students for being a Wildcat because they could choose to go to other institutions. And it also helps them to connect with the greater ACU environment.
Mhm.
As well as I will draw out students that I notice may be a little shy and may not want to engage in group discussions. I will draw them out and ask them some open-ended questions in the discussion to allow them an opportunity to continue to dialogue with the other students. And so it draws us into the community of engagement as well as it draws us into the greater ACU community.
I love that. I think that's one of the things, one of the many things I love about you, Dr. Gigi, is that you have embraced being a wildcat and being a part of that community. And I think with that kind of connection, it brings others in as well. So now that we've talked about sense of community, let's talk about one of the other things that you can do to form relationships with students in the online classroom. So next, let's talk about engagement and perceived learning and how that affects relationship building in the online classroom. One of the things that Kim and Han said in 2021 is that social presence, and this is the ability to project yourself socially and emotionally in the classroom, were significant predictors again of student satisfaction, engagement, and their learning, their perceived learning in the online classroom. And when I hear the word social presence, what I typically think of is how am I making sure they see me and hear me in the classroom? So that may be posting announcements, that may be replying to discussions. That may mean that when I see that in a discussion that their answer is not really right, I may send them a message through the Canvas inbox saying, hey, Joey, I noticed on your discussion you might have been struggling with the idea of transformational leadership. Would you like to meet and we can talk about that so you have a better understanding before our assignment this week? But one of the things our instructors need to know is that the federal government has released guidelines for online education. And one of the things that is required is regular and substantive interaction, which is also called RSI. And what this means is they're looking that every week the instructor in the classroom needs to have two things they do in the classroom that spurs conversation and relationship with the student. So that could be posting an announcement. That could be in the discussion before it even opens, you posting a thought about the discussion and asking for students' feedback. But we need to make sure that the students feel like we're in the classroom and we're actively involved. Because unfortunately, I hear of instructors that sometimes just grade every week, and that's all they do. And they're grading, they go, good job, and give the student a high grade. Or, hey, you didn't do a good job, and they give the student a failing grade, and they don't explain why the grade happened. So I want to, as a professor, make sure the students feel like I'm in the classroom because in week 3 and 4, as things get difficult, I want them to be very comfortable reaching out to me because they know that I'm easy and available to contact. But I know Dr. Gigi has some great ideas too about social presence and engaging in the classroom. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Gigi, to share some of your ideas.
Sure, thank you. What I'm really excited about doing every week is posting an announcement to the class to let the students know what to expect in the week to come. And I'm really capitalizing on that opportunity to share where they need to really focus a lot of attention so that they really grasp the lesson for that week. And in addition to that, I also provide them with little nuggets of feedback and help along the way through additional announcements. So if
Mm,
I learn something, if I experience something, if I see where the class is having challenges, I heavily use the announcements as a way to communicate. In addition to that, I look for students that need encouragement and or they may be going through some personal struggles and challenges, and
mhm,
I will also send them a message as well as I will draw them out to ensure that they know that I'm thinking about them and that I am here to support them and that we care about them as a person at ACU. So if
mhm,
there's anything that we can do to help, please let us know and we will.
mhm. I love that, Dr. Gigi, because ACU is a place that is different, that we want to support them if they're struggling in their family, if they're having health concerns, and we want to make sure that they feel comfortable reaching out. And one of those things that we need to do to increase the engagement and their learning is be socially present in the classroom. So thanks for sharing that. So now that we've talked about a few other things that have helped students do well in our courses because of being relationally connected, let's talk about how student persistence increases when students feel like they have a relationship with their instructors and peers in the classroom. So I'm gonna let Dr. Gigi go first and tell us more about what she does in the classroom to help with student persistence.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Counts. I really take the opportunity when assignments are due to ensure that all of my students have turned in the assignment. And if there is a student that's missing an assignment, I will reach out to them and say, hello, how are you? I've noticed that you have missed turning in this assignment. Is there anything going on that I can help you with? How are you? And there are times when students have replied and said, oh, Dr. Gigi, I'm so sorry. I was caught up in this particular situation in my life, but because you checked on me, I'll go ahead and do that assignment now and get it turned in. And
Mm,
that makes me recognize that it's important for the student to feel as if we're not just there to grade an assignment that they turn in and be done with it, that we
mhm.
care about their success holistically.
Amen. I love that. And one of the things that really sticks out to me is it's so easy in the online classroom for a student to feel alone. And when they do badly, that they'll ghost the class. They'll be gone because they're so shame. They feel shame about how they did or how they don't feel like they can do something well. And I think one of the things we have to do is we really have to give messages of support to our students. In fact, in the public speaking class that we teach, one of the first things the students do in their first get to know you welcome video, they have to say a mantra that they raise their right hand and they say, learning is great, but when I learn, I'm going to make mistakes. That's going to be okay. And what I find in all my courses is when a student messages me anything negative about themselves, I very quickly try to reply and say, this is nothing about your self-worth. This is nothing about your character. You are learning, and we always make mistakes when we learn. And by giving those messages that give them permission to not always be perfect, I find that students are more likely to persist in the classroom. So I think you're right, Dr. Gigi, that one of the things that's different about ACU is that we care about the student and giving them messages of support. Not that I have to be a counselor, but rather just say, hey, I'm praying for you. Hey, I encourage you to redo this assignment, take my feedback and redo it because you got the concept. We just need to do better in some of these other areas. I think that's encouraging for the student. Well, now that we talked about student persistence, let's move on and talk about the last thing that relationship building can actually encourage in our classroom. All right, so now let's talk about collaboration in our online classes. I know that most of our classes don't have any really small group assignments, but anything we can do to help students connect, and be collaborative actually helps increase their critical thinking and problem solving. Huang and Hong in 2015 noted that when they feel comfortable working together and then they're more likely to share ideas and provide feedback. And this is just a really important skill to have. In fact, I'll let Dr. Gigi tell you more about that and how she does it in the classroom.
Well, thank you, Dr. Counts. In our program, we have 2 synchronous discussions per term. And
Mhm,
in those synchronous discussions, I advertise them, I put out, say, the dates, and I try to get as many students as possible to participate. And when we're in those synchronous discussions, it's not just a lecture. I open up for an opportunity for the students to dialogue, to
mhm,
engage, and to learn from each other as well. And
mhm,
so I really stress the opportunity of them collaborating on this topic so that they can learn through collaboration and that they can experience the ebbs and flows and ups and downs of what the topic is about.
mhm,
And why is that important? To me, it's very important because as an HR professional, I recognize that being able to collaborate in the workplace is an essential skill to be an effective leader and a great team member. So in today's challenging workplace where there's a labor
Mhm.
shortage of good talent, those students that we are preparing to be able to collaborate on certain topics effectively empowers
Mhm.
them to be more successful and to obtain greater opportunities as well. So
Mhm.
holistically, I'm using the synchronous discussions as an opportunity to drive collaboration with the students.
Oh, I love that. That's great. And I was thinking as we brought up this topic that our discussion boards are supposed to be places where students can share ideas and provide feedback. And even though they may not be working on a project together in those discussions, one of the things that I need to do a better job of is in the discussion, modeling how to give good feedback that is kind, but to spur their thinking. In fact, in discussions, what I tend to do is I'll take a topic that they're talking about, say maybe it is transformational leadership, and I'll say, okay, you've noted that you tend to be a transformational leader. How does that impact how you handle conflict when you're in the workplace as well? Because if you're that kind of leader, it probably impacts how you handle conflict. What have you seen there? So I'm trying to spur that thinking for the students. And I think as they challenge each other, instead of just saying, I loved your post, it was great, if I could challenge them, we get more of those collaboration benefits as well. All right, so now we've talked about collaboration. We'd like to share with you folks some of the things that we do in our classroom to increase relationships between our students and between our students and our instructors. All right, so we'd like to share with you some strategies we have in the classroom to build a relationship with students. And I'm going to let Dr. Gigi go first, and then I'll tell you about some of mine. Dr. Gigi?
Sure, thank you. I am really excited at the beginning of each term. And so, what I do is I let the students know that I would like to have a one on one with each of them within the first 2 weeks of class. It gives them an opportunity to see me as a person, and it gives me an opportunity to get to know them as an individual as well. And
Mhm.
then what I do is I try to provide encouraging words during feedback. I always start off with the great things that they've done, how well I
Mm.
enjoy their examples, how clear and concise they have written the assignment, or I love their slides. And then I'll move into providing them with some additional ways in which they can enhance their work and to continue to encourage them to do well.
Mm.
And I also show appreciation by thanking students for turning in their work. I thank them for participating in discussions, and
Mm.
I am very appreciative and grateful that they are at ACU and for being a Wildcat. I also provide quick responses. So if a student reaches out to me via email or through Canvas, I will try my best to respond within 12 hours. I'm usually much swifter than that, but that
Mm.
is my goal, to respond within 12 hours. And I let the students know that Sunday is, Team Goodwin Family Fun Day. So that might slow down the responses, but I'm still
Yeah,
always checking in to ensure
yeah.
that I respond in a timely fashion. And then I make myself available for meetings outside of my office hours. So there's some students that are working two jobs, and or
Mhm.
they have a family and they have commitments and obligations that keep them busy during standard office hours. So they may ask, can I meet with you at 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning? Why not?
Oh,
Because they're
that's
important
great.
to me. So I make myself
Yeah.
available. And I'm always willing to provide additional resources. So if I read an article, or if there's something, some current event, or if there's a poem of encouragement that I could give a student, or if there's some guideline that I've read on how to structure a paragraph, in addition to the wonderful resources that we have available at
Mhm.
ACU, I will give that to them, because all it could take is a little nugget of something for them to learn and to grasp the point that we really want them to walk away with. And
Mm.
I check in with them if they're absent, if they're missing class, if they're not showing up in group discussions. I'm the instructor that will check in and just make sure that you're okay, find out, if there's anything that I can do to assist you. And all of those strategies have been very helpful with my students really feeling like we care about them at ACU and that I care about them as an instructor. And it helps them to really learn the theme and the lesson that we really want them to learn from the curriculum.
Well, speaking of themes, Dr. Gigi, I'm going to share with the listeners one of the things you also do is she has a tagline, be encouraged. And whenever she posts an announcement or gives feedback to students, she says, be encouraged. And I love that because there's a sense of optimism that, hey, even if we're not getting the grade we want, be encouraged. There's hope because we're all learning. So now that we talked about yours, Dr. Gigi's, I'll move on and share some of my strategies as well. All right, so Dr. Gigi was gracious enough to share her strategies. I'll share mine as well. And these are just ideas of things that we do in our classroom, but I bet everybody else has a multitude of things that they do as well to build relationship. So if any of these you want to use, you're welcome to. But one of the things I do is I Canvas inbox, I send a message via Canvas inbox to each student in the middle of the term just to say, hey, how are you? This is not a message to check on your grades or ask a question. I just want to see how you're doing, if there's anything I can pray for you. I did that last term to all my students, and I came up with this idea because I was so frustrated that they weren't interacting with me. So I was like, well, I'll just send them all an individual inbox message to say, how are you doing? What's going on? How can I pray for you? And I had one student message me that she said after 2 years at ACU Online, she had never had a professor do that. And I'm like, yeah, I've been guilty of not doing that either. But I found that it's a great way to tell the student, you're important to me. I want to be able to help you in this course and even to pray about your personal lives if you'll share that with me. I also personalize my communication with my students. And you heard me say that earlier on in this presentation, but it's like when I'm at church and I see somebody, I want to say their name. I want to say something like, hey, Amanda, it's so good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Because by using their name, I'm recognizing who they are and that I remember them. So I always try to personalize my communication in my feedback or the discussions. I'll use their first name because I want to make sure that I'm going, I know you. I know who you are and I recognize you. Also, the other thing I do, and I may do this, Dr. Gigi, because I'm just a communication person, but many times I'll make audio or video feedback. I know everybody's not comfortable with that, but usually on the very first week and the second week's assignments, I'll almost always make an audio or video recording for all the students. Because first of all, I want them to hear the tone of my voice. Many times in a written message when I'm giving feedback, and I'll say, great job, you need to be concerned about this, this, and this. It removes all the nonverbals. But with the audio and video feedback, I can communicate my empathy, I can communicate my caring, that they are important to me. And I just think that audio and video feedback is better at creating relationship with students. So to take that a step further, I also do weekly videos overviewing the week and what's coming up as my announcement. I had a student early on tell me, she said, I loved it when a professor did this in the class. It just helped me understand the announcement so much better. And I realized that one of the benefits for my students is that, and I do it as a screencast. So I'll make a screencast of the screen. I'll say, all right, here we are in week 6, and I'll click on the week 6 module. And the readings and resources, pay attention to this and this, because it'll really help you in your assignment. And then I'll go down to the discussion and the assignment. And you know as well as I do, none of our discussions or assignments are written perfectly. Well, maybe you have a few perfect ones. But most of the time, you as an instructor need to go through the instructions and say, hey, watch out for this. Most of my students have a problem with this part in this paper. So this gives me an ability to, again, create relationship with students. They see that presence of me in the classroom, but also benefits them because they maybe get a few more details on the assignment and helpful hints they hadn't considered before. Another way to create relationships with students is to share your personal experience. Now, when we say create relationships, it's not that you folks have to talk with students 20 hours a week, that you have to share the whole full details of your life. But if there's something relevant in my past and my experiences that connects with the class, that will also let the students see that I'm human, I want to share that experience. Usually I do that through announcements, or if I'm having a one-on-one with a student, I may share, hey, I also had a health difficulty. I have this going on. Could we pray for each other for those kind of things? And again, it helps students feel more comfortable to approach me when they're having problems in the class because they've seen that I'm a real person with real struggles and challenges. And lastly, I do offer to pray for my students. I might do that through an announcement, or if a student shares with me that, hey, Dr. Counts, I'm sorry this is late because of blank. I'll probably message them and say, hey, I saw your feedback and I saw that you noted you're having these challenges. Can I pray for you? Is there anything else that I can pray about for you? Because again, I'm wanting to increase that relationship. They feel comfortable in the classroom and comfortable to not always turn in the perfect assignment because they know that I'll grade them diligently and probably maybe a little bit more hard than some other professors. They always know that they can talk to me about it. Now, one other note that I would tell people that as you have relationships with students, and if you find that a student is challenged in their personal life, we do have a wellness center that is headed up by Abby Green. So if you have a student that is pregnant, or you have a student that gets COVID, or a student that's having problems paying their internet bill, can't always guarantee that we'll help pay internet bills, but you can always make a wellness referral, and Abby Green will contact them to see if we can support them in any way. She'll also help coordinate communication with the other instructor that they're in class with. So those are some of my strategies, but we'll move on to the next slide and I'll wrap things up. All right, so as we wrap up, let's talk about benefits to you as an instructor of having a relationship in the classroom. Um, the studies show that we have increased job satisfaction when you interact and try to have a relationship in a classroom, a likelihood of more engagement by your students in the class, and you're more engaged as well, but also higher student evaluations, which is a win-win. I know for me that I love teaching because I feel like the Lord can use me to spread some seeds in a student's life. And it really gives me job satisfaction when I can have a class where I connect with students, have a relationship with students, and be able to show them the love of Christ. So it really impacts me and my job satisfaction. But Dr. Gigi has some things to share as well about how this benefits her.
Sure. I have always, from an early age, wanted to be a college professor. So this gives me an opportunity to live out a lifelong dream. But it also gives me an opportunity to connect with students from different walks of life, from all over the
Mhm,
country, and let them know that, I care about them as a person and that I want them to be successful and that we
mhm,
care about you at ACU.
mhm,
So it's a dream come true for me, and it enables me to share my life's experiences, my work experiences with our students so that when they leave my class, they
mhm,
learn how to be effective leaders and better team members.
Amen. Well, to wrap up and to conclude this, Dr. Gigi, I just thought we'd share with everybody about instructor friendships. One of the reasons I do this job is I believe the Lord continually brings people into my life that I can bless them and they can bless me. And Dr. Gigi was that for me as well. Shout out to Dr. Scott Self. He introduced us one time. We had a Zoom call, wasn't it? And he said, I think you guys will like each other. Maybe you can do some research together. And then I plugged Dr. Gigi into one of our classes. But as we've lived life together, our friendship has grown. It's really benefited me because Dr. Gigi is the kind of instructor that I want in my classroom, someone who helps teach students, but also loves students and understands that this job is more than just grading papers. But what would you tell them about our friendship, Dr. Gigi?
Well, I have gained a lot by the experience of being an instructor with ACU and in this
Mhm,
program and working with you. And I've
mhm,
gained not just the ability to share my work experiences, but also to listen and learn about how to be a better person
mhm,
myself from our
mhm.
relationship.
Yes,
And you're one
me
of those
too.
people that I will call on as part of my board of directors to guide me for whatever experiences I'm going through in my
Mhm,
life. And I'm
mhm,
grateful for you allowing me to have, you in my life to take this journey
mhm,
with me and for this entire experience. And so sometimes it'll be something that the students will say, and then
Mhm.
sometimes, from our meetings with other instructors and with each other, and it has afforded me to grow personally as well.
Mm. Amen. Thank you. You're certainly a blessing in my life. Well, as we wrap up, we've talked about building relationships online. And, we're not talking about how you have to take on the problems of every student, but rather create an atmosphere in your classroom that encourages relationship building. The students could connect with students can connect with you. And I'd also encourage you to try to connect with other instructors in our AC Law online environment because you can share ideas and share encouragements to each other. So I'm going to quote my friend, Dr. Gigi, and tell you, be encouraged. Bye, y'all. Have a great day.